The year is 1756. The great powers of Europe stand on the precipice of war, but this is no ordinary conflict. This is a war that will span continents, engulfing Europe, North America, the Caribbean, West Africa, and India. Armies will clash in dense forests, on open battlefields, and across turbulent seas. The struggle for supremacy will reshape the world order, determining the fate of empires and the future of nations. Welcome to the 7 Years' War, the first true global war. To understand this war, we must first go back to the early 18th century. Europe was a battlefield of competing empires. Britain and France, long-standing rivals, were fighting for dominance in trade, territory, and maritime power. Their colonial ambitions extended from the forests of North America to the spice-rich lands of India. Meanwhile, in Central Europe, Austria sought to reclaim Silesia from Prussia, ruled by the ambitious and militarily brilliant Frederick the Great. The balance of power in Europe was fragile, with shifting alliances and deep-seated rivalries fueling tensions that would eventually erupt into a global conflict. Preemptive strike. In 1756, Frederick the Great of Prussia launched an attack on Austria, fearing an impending coalition against him. This aggressive move set the war in motion. Alliances and factions. Britain and Prussia. Britain backed Prussia, largely because of its rivalry with France, particularly in colonial and naval power. France, Austria, Russia, Spain, and Sweden. Austria sought to reclaim Silesia from Prussia. France and Austria, historical enemies, became allies, a significant shift in European diplomacy. Russia, Spain, and Sweden also joined against Prussia, fearing its growing power. Global conflict. The war quickly expanded beyond Europe, involving colonial territories in North America, the Caribbean, India, and Africa, making it one of the first truly global wars. On the European front, the war was fierce and unforgiving. Frederick the Great led Prussia through a series of daring victories, defying the odds against a vastly superior coalition of enemies. Utilizing rapid maneuvers, disciplined infantry, and innovative battlefield tactics, he secured key victories that stunned Europe. The battles of Rossbach and Leuthen in 1757 were defining moments. At Rossbach, the outnumbered Prussian army inflicted a devastating defeat on the French and Holy Roman Empire forces through superior strategy and mobility. Weeks later, at Leuthen, Frederick crushed the Austrians with a masterful flanking maneuver, cementing his reputation as one of history's greatest military commanders. Despite these victories, the war remained perilous. Prussia faced relentless pressure on multiple fronts. The Russian army occupied East Prussia, Austrian forces threatened Silesia, and at times, Berlin itself seemed within reach of the enemy. Prussia's survival depended on Frederick's leadership and his army's discipline, but by 1761, his forces were exhausted, his allies wavering, and defeat seemed inevitable. Then, in what became known as the miracle of the House of Brandenburg, Tsarina Elizabeth of Russia died in 1762. Her successor, Peter III, was an admirer of Frederick and immediately withdrew Russia from the war, shifting the balance of power. With this unexpected reprieve, Prussia regained strength, forcing Austria into peace negotiations. The war in Europe had taken a heavy toll, but Prussia emerged as a dominant force, securing its status as a major European power. However, the tide nearly turned when Russia and Austria began closing in. Prussia stood on the brink of defeat until fate intervened. Tsarina Elizabeth of Russia died in 1762, and her successor, Peter III, admired Frederick, pulling Russia out of the war. Conflict in North America. The war was primarily between Britain and France, with indigenous groups aligning with both sides. It was fought over territorial claims, particularly in the Ohio River Valley. Role of indigenous allies. Many Native American tribes allied with the French due to trade relations and opposition to British expansion. Some, however, fought alongside the British, depending on local interests. Turning point, Battle of the Plains of Abraham, 1759. A decisive battle in Quebec where British General James Wolfe faced off against French General Montcalm. Both commanders died, but the British emerged victorious, leading to the fall of Quebec. This victory effectively ended French power in Canada. Strategic importance. The capture of Quebec was critical because it cut off French supply lines and led to the fall of Montreal in 1760. It paved the way for the Treaty of Paris, 1763, which ceded New France, Canada to Britain. Europe burned. The war extended across the globe. In India, Britain's East India Company, under Robert Clive, defeated the French-backed Bengal forces at the Battle of Plassey in 1757, solidifying British dominance in the region. Naval battles raged in the Caribbean and along the African coast, with Britain seizing valuable French colonies and trade routes. By 1761, the British Royal Navy had gained control of the seas. By 1763, after years of relentless warfare, all sides were exhausted, their economies strained, and their military forces depleted. The Treaty of Paris formally ended the conflict, redrawing the world map and reshaping global power dynamics. France ceded its vast North American territories to Britain, including Canada and lands east of the Mississippi, effectively ending French colonial rule in the region. In return, Spain, which had entered the war as France's ally, gained Louisiana as compensation for the loss of Florida to Britain. In Europe, Prussia retained control of Silesia, reaffirming its place as a major European power and solidifying Frederick the Great's legacy. The war had ended, but its consequences would ripple through history, influencing the course of future conflicts and revolutions. However, the war's legacy did not end there. Britain, deeply in debt, imposed new taxes on its American colonies, leading to unrest and, eventually, the American Revolution. The 7 Years' War not only shaped empires but set the stage for future revolutions and conflicts. The 7 Years' War was more than just another conflict. It was a war that shaped the modern world. From the rise of British global dominance to the seeds of revolution, its impact is still felt today. History is not just the past, it is the foundation of our present. Thank you for watching Historian's Lounge. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more historical content. Until next time, keep exploring the past.